I woke up in complete darkness, my heart pounding like a drum in my chest. Something was terribly wrong. My bedroom door was wide open, and I could hear strange shuffling sounds coming from downstairs. But that wasn't the scary part. The scary part was what I found under my pillow when I reached for my phone to check the time. There, folded neatly like a secret note, was a piece of paper with my father's handwriting. The words made my blood turn cold. "Tomorrow you will understand everything, Sarah. Pack your bags tonight. We'll leave at dawn. Tell no one. Trust me." My hands were shaking so badly, I could barely hold the paper. What did he mean? Where were we going? And why did he sneak into my room while I was sleeping to leave this mysterious message? I wanted to scream, to run, to disappear forever. But let me tell you how this all started, because you need to know the whole story to understand why I felt like my world was falling apart. 3 weeks earlier, everything in my life seemed normal. Well, as normal as life could be for a 12-year-old girl living with just her father in a small town called Millbrook. My name is Sarah Henderson, and my dad, Robert Henderson, worked as a mechanic at the local garage. We lived in a tiny house on Elm Street, with a red front door and a garden where Dad grew tomatoes every summer. My mom had died when I was 7, and since then, it had just been Dad and me against the world. He taught me how to ride a bike, helped me with my homework, and made the best pancakes in the entire universe. Every Sunday, we would go to the park and feed the ducks by the pond. Dad would always bring stale bread from the bakery, and I would laugh as the ducks fought over the biggest pieces. But 3 weeks ago, everything started to change in the strangest way possible. It began on a Tuesday morning when I came downstairs for breakfast. Dad was sitting at the kitchen table, staring at a thick brown envelope with no return address. His face was pale, and his hands were trembling slightly as he held the envelope. When he saw me, he quickly stuffed it into his jacket pocket. "Morning, sweetheart," he said, but his voice sounded different. Worried. Scared even. "What was in that envelope, Dad?" I asked, pouring myself a glass of orange juice. "Oh, just some boring grown-up stuff," he replied, but he wouldn't look me in the eyes. "Nothing for you to worry about." That was the first lie. I knew it was a lie because Dad always looked at me when he talked to me. It was one of the things I loved about him. He treated me like I was important, like what I had to say mattered. But that morning, he kept staring at his coffee cup like it held the secrets of the universe. The next strange thing happened that same week. I came home from school on Thursday to find Dad cleaning out our garage. This might not sound weird to you, but you have to understand, our garage was Dad's sacred space. It was filled with old car parts, tools, and boxes of stuff from when Mom was alive. Dad never let anyone touch anything in there, not even me. But there he was, throwing things into garbage bags like his life depended on it. Old photo albums, Mom's gardening tools, even his collection of vintage car magazines that he treasured more than gold. Everything was going into those black bags. "Dad, what are you doing?" I asked, watching him toss away a box of Christmas decorations that Mom had collected over the years. He paused and wiped sweat from his forehead. "Spring cleaning, Sarah. Sometimes we need to let go of old things to make room for new ones." "But it's October," I said, confused. He gave me a weak smile. "Well, autumn cleaning then." That was the second lie. The third strange thing happened over the weekend. Dad started making phone calls, lots of them. But whenever I walked into the room, he would quickly hang up or start talking about something completely different. I heard bits and pieces. Words like safe, far away, and they can't find us there. Who couldn't find us where? Find us from what? One night, I pretended to be asleep and listened outside his bedroom door. Dad was talking to someone in a hushed voice. "I know it's been 15 years, but they found us," he whispered. "Sarah doesn't know anything about it, and I want to keep it that way. We need to disappear again." Again? What did he mean by again? "No, she thinks her mother died in a car accident," Dad continued. "She's never known the truth, and maybe it's better that way. But if they get to her..." His voice broke, and I heard him crying softly. I had never heard my father cry before, not even at Mom's funeral. My heart felt like it was being squeezed by an invisible hand. The next morning, Dad acted like nothing had happened. He made pancakes, helped me with my math homework, and we watched our favorite TV show together. But I could see the worry in his eyes, the way he kept checking the windows, the way he jumped every time the phone rang. School became my escape from the weirdness at home. My best friend Emma noticed I was acting strange. "You've been super quiet lately," she said during lunch on Monday. "Is everything okay?" I wanted to tell her about Dad's mysterious behavior, about the phone calls and the cleaning and the lies. But something told me to keep quiet. Maybe it was the way Dad had been acting, like we were keeping a dangerous secret. "Everything's fine," I said, which was my first lie too. But everything was not fine. That very afternoon, when I got home from school, I found Dad boarding up our basement windows. Actual wooden boards, nailed right over the glass. "Dad, what are you doing now?" I asked, dropping my backpack by the front door. He looked up from his hammer and nails, sweat dripping down his face despite the cool October air. "Just some home improvements, sweetheart. Making the house more secure." "Secure from what?" From burglars," he said, but I could tell he was making it up as he went along. "There have been some break-ins in the neighborhood." I hadn't heard about any break-ins. Mrs. Patterson next door was the biggest gossip in town, and she would have told everyone if there had been any crimes happening on our street. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every little sound made me jump. The wind rattling the windows, the old house creaking and settling, even the neighbor's cat walking across our roof. But the scariest sound of all was Dad pacing back and forth in his room, talking quietly on the phone again. I crept to my bedroom door and pressed my ear against it. This time, I could hear him more clearly. "They left another message," he was saying. "Same handwriting, same threat. They know where we live, Marcus. They know about Sarah." There was a long pause while the person on the other end talked. "No, I can't tell her the truth," Dad continued. "She's just a kid. She deserves to have a normal life, not to live in fear like we did. But if I don't take her away from here soon..." Another pause. I know. 15 years of hiding, and now it's all falling apart. But I won't let them hurt her like they hurt." His voice got too quiet for me to hear the rest, but I caught one more sentence that made my blood turn to ice. "If they find us, Marcus, I don't think we'll survive this time." The next few days were a blur of strange activities. Dad started packing boxes, but he told me we were just storing some things in the attic. He made me practice what he called emergency drills. Weird games where I had to hide in the closet for 10 minutes without making any noise, or run from the back door to the garden shed as fast as I could. "Why are we playing these games, Dad?" I asked after a particularly intense hiding session. "It's important to be prepared, Sarah," he said seriously. "Sometimes in life, you need to know how to keep yourself safe." "Safe from what?" From anything that might happen." It was the most non-answer I had ever heard, but I could see in his eyes that he was terrified of something. And that scared me more than anything else, because Dad had always been the bravest person I knew. Then came the night that changed everything. The night I found that note under my pillow. I had gone to bed early, exhausted from all the worry and confusion of the past 3 weeks. But something woke me up around midnight. It wasn't a sound exactly, more like a feeling that someone was in my room. I lay perfectly still, pretending to be asleep, while footsteps moved quietly around my bed. I could smell Dad's cologne, so I knew it was him, but what was he doing in my room in the middle of the night? I heard the soft sound of paper being placed under my pillow, and then the footsteps retreated. After I was sure he was gone, I reached under my pillow with shaking hands. That's when I found the note that turned my world upside down. "Tomorrow you will understand everything, Sarah. Pack your bags tonight. We leave at dawn. Tell no one. Trust me." I read it 5 times, hoping the words would somehow change. But they stayed the same, written in Dad's careful handwriting. We were leaving Millbrook. We were leaving our home, my school, my friends, everything I had ever known. But why? And where were we going? I sat up in bed, clutching the note, when I heard something that made my heart nearly stop beating. There was a car outside our house, idling quietly in the darkness. Through my bedroom window, I could see the shadow of someone sitting in the driver's seat. They had found us. The car sat outside our house like a sleeping monster, its engine purring so quietly I almost thought I was imagining it. But I wasn't imagining the way my heart was hammering against my ribs, or the cold sweat that broke out all over my body as I peeked through my bedroom curtains. The streetlight cast an eerie glow over the dark sedan, but I couldn't see the license plate or make out the face of the person inside. All I could see was the red glow of a cigarette moving back and forth in the darkness, like a tiny evil eye watching our house. I wanted to run to Dad's room and tell him about the car, but something stopped me. What if this was part of whatever danger he'd been trying to protect me from? What if going to him would make things worse? Instead, I did something that probably wasn't very smart. I decided to watch and wait. For 2 hours, I sat by my window, hidden behind the curtains, watching that car. The person inside never got out, never turned on the headlights, never did anything except smoke cigarette after cigarette. It was like they were waiting for something. Or someone. Around 3 in the morning, I must have dozed off, because the next thing I knew, sunlight was streaming through my window and birds were chirping outside. The car was gone. Had I dreamed the whole thing? I looked at the note still clutched in my hand, and I knew it had been real. Everything had been real. I could hear Dad moving around downstairs, making breakfast like it was any normal day. But nothing about this day was going to be normal. According to his note, we were supposed to leave at dawn. Dawn had already passed, and we were still here. I got dressed quickly and ran downstairs, expecting to find suitcases by the door and Dad ready to whisk me away to whatever mysterious destination he had planned. Instead, I found him standing at the kitchen sink, washing dishes and humming an old song Mom used to sing. "Morning, sweetheart," he said without turning around. "Sleep well." "Dad," I said, pulling the note from my pocket. "What is this?" He turned around, saw the paper in my hand, and his face went completely white. For a moment he looked like he might faint. "Where did you get that?" he whispered. "You put it under my pillow last night. I felt you come into my room." Dad's hands were shaking as he dried them on a dish towel. He walked over to me slowly, like he was afraid I might run away. "Sarah, I can explain everything, but first I need you to promise me something. Can you promise me that no matter what I tell you, you'll trust that everything I've done has been to keep you safe?" I looked into his eyes, the same brown eyes that had comforted me through nightmares, helped me with homework, and always made me feel loved and protected. But now those eyes were filled with a fear so deep it made my stomach hurt. "I promise, Dad." He sat down at the kitchen table and patted the chair next to him. "Come sit with me, sweetheart. It's time you learn the truth about who we really are." The words sent a chill down my spine. Who we really are. What did that mean? "Your name isn't really Sarah Henderson," Dad began, his voice barely above a whisper. "And my name isn't Robert Henderson either." I felt like the floor had dropped out from under me. "What are you talking about?" "Your real name is Emma Rose Sullivan. My real name is Michael Sullivan. We've been living under fake identities for the past 5 years, ever since we moved to Millbrook." The room started spinning. Everything I thought I knew about myself, about my life, about who I was, it was all a lie. But why? I managed to ask. Dad took a deep breath. "Because we're running from some very dangerous people. People who want to hurt us because of something I did a long time ago, before you were born." "What did you do?" "I was a police officer in the city, working on a case involving a group of criminals who were stealing money from banks. I gathered evidence that could have sent them all to prison for a very long time. But before I could present the evidence in court, they found out about my investigation." Dad's hands were clenched into fists on the table. "They came to our house one night when you were 7 years old. They had guns, Sarah. Emma, I mean. They threatened to kill both of us if I didn't destroy the evidence and keep quiet about what I knew." I remembered that night, though Dad had always told me it was just a burglary. I remembered hiding in my closet while strange men's voices filled our house, and the sound of things being broken and thrown around. I remembered Dad holding me afterward, telling me everything was going to be okay. "I gave them what they wanted," Dad continued. "I destroyed the evidence, and they left us alone. But a few months later, your mother started getting phone calls. Threatening calls. They would describe what you were wearing to school that day, what playground you played on, what time you walked home. They wanted us to know they were watching, that they could get to us anytime they wanted. What happened to Mom? I asked, though I was afraid to hear the answer. Dad's eyes filled with tears. She didn't die in a car accident, sweetheart. One night, she went to the grocery store and never came home. The police said it looked like she lost control of her car and crashed into a tree, but I knew better. There were no skid marks, no signs she had tried to brake. And there was a message left on our answering machine that night, a man's voice saying, "This is what happens when you don't stay quiet." I felt like I was going to throw up. My mother hadn't died in an accident. She had been murdered because Dad had tried to do the right thing. After the funeral, I knew we had to disappear, Dad said. I contacted an old friend from my police days, someone who specialized in helping people start new lives. He got us new identities, new social security numbers, everything we needed to become the Henderson family. So we moved to Millbrook and pretended to be different people?
Yes.
And for 5 years, it worked. We were safe, happy. You grew up believing you were Sarah Henderson, daughter of a mechanic, living a normal life. I thought maybe they had forgotten about us, moved on to other targets. But they found us, I said, remembering the mysterious car outside our house. Dad nodded grimly. 3 weeks ago, I found a note tucked under my windshield wiper at work. It had our real names on it, Emma. It said they knew where we lived, where you went to school, everything. And it said they weren't finished with us yet. Now, everything made sense. The mysterious envelope, the phone calls, Dad boarding up the basement windows. He had been trying to protect us from these dangerous people who had already killed my mother. So, we have to run away again? I asked. I'm afraid so, sweetheart. But this time, we're going somewhere they'll never find us. Somewhere safe where we can start over, and you can just be a kid again. I looked around our little kitchen, at the refrigerator covered with my drawings and school photos, at the table where Dad and I ate breakfast every morning. This was my home. These were my memories. How could I just leave it all behind? What about Emma? My friend Emma, what about school and Mrs. Patterson and the ducks at the park? I know it's hard, Dad said, reaching over to squeeze my hand. But we don't have a choice. These people don't just make threats, sweetheart. They follow through on them. And I won't let what happened to your mother happen to you. Suddenly, there was a loud knock at our front door. Not a normal knock, the kind of pounding that meant whoever was outside wasn't going to go away. Dad's face went pale as paper. Go upstairs, he whispered urgently. Go to your room, lock the door, and hide in your closet. Don't come out no matter what you hear. Do you understand me? The pounding got louder, more insistent. Dad, I'm scared. I know, sweetheart, but you have to be brave now. Remember those hiding games we practiced? This is the real thing. I started toward the stairs, but then I heard something that made my blood freeze. A man's voice from outside, loud and threatening. Michael Sullivan. We know you're in there. We know the girl is with you. Come out now, and maybe we won't burn the house down with both of you inside. Dad pushed me toward the stairs. Go, Emma. Go now. But as I reached the bottom step, the front door exploded inward with a crash that shook the entire house. 3 men in dark clothes came rushing through the doorway, and the biggest one was holding something in his hand that glinted in the morning sunlight. A gun. The gun looked enormous in the big man's hand, like something out of a scary movie. But this wasn't a movie. This was real, and it was happening in my kitchen where Dad made me pancakes every Sunday morning. Well, the man said, his voice smooth and cold like ice. If it isn't Officer Michael Sullivan. Though I hear you go by Robert Henderson these days. Dad stepped in front of me, blocking me from the men's view. Let the girl go, Vincent. This is between you and me. Vincent. So this man had a name. Somehow that made him even scarier, because it meant he was a real person, not just a nightmare. The girl? Vincent laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. You mean little Emma Rose? She's gotten so big since we last saw her. What is she now, 12? 13. She doesn't know anything, Dad said, his voice steady even though I could see his hands shaking. She's just a kid who thinks her name is Sarah Henderson and her father fixes cars for a living. How sweet, said one of the other men, a thin guy with a scraggly beard. A nice normal life built on lies. Vincent walked further into our kitchen, looking around like he owned the place. You know, Michael, when we killed your wife 5 years ago, we thought that would be enough to keep you quiet permanently. But then we started hearing rumors. Whispers that maybe Officer Sullivan had made copies of those files before he destroyed them. Maybe he had a backup plan. My legs felt like jelly. They were talking about killing my mother like it was nothing more than swatting a fly. I destroyed everything, Dad said. There are no copies, no backup files, nothing. I kept my end of the bargain. Did you? Vincent smiled, and it was the most terrifying smile I had ever seen. Because our sources tell us different. They tell us you might have hidden something. Something that could still cause us a lot of problems. Your sources are wrong. Maybe. But we can't take that chance, can we? Vincent gestured with his gun toward the living room. Let's all have a nice family chat, shall we? You, me, and little Emma Rose. Her name is Sarah, Dad said firmly. And she's not part of this. Oh, but she is, Vincent said. She's been part of this since the day you decided to play hero and investigate our business. The moment you gathered that evidence, you made her a target too. I wanted to run, to scream, to do something, but I was frozen with terror. These were the people who had killed my mother. These were the people we had been running from for 5 years. And now they were in our house with guns, talking about us like we were already dead. Vincent noticed me peeking around Dad's shoulder. Hello there, Emma. Or, do you prefer Sarah? It must be confusing, having so many names. I couldn't speak. My voice had completely disappeared. She's scared, the bearded man said. Poor little thing probably doesn't understand what's happening. She's about to understand everything, Vincent said. Aren't you, sweetie? Your daddy has been keeping some very big secrets from you. Dad took a step toward Vincent. Leave her alone. You want to know about files and evidence? Fine. But let her go first. I don't think so. Vincent's voice turned sharp and dangerous. You see, Michael, we've learned not to trust you. Last time we made a deal, we thought we were clear. We thought you understood that silence meant complete silence. But here we are, 5 years later, still worried about what you might have hidden away. Because I didn't hide anything. Prove it. The two men moved to block the doorway, while Vincent kept his gun pointed at Dad. We were trapped. Here's what's going to happen, Vincent said, settling into one of our kitchen chairs like he was visiting old friends. You're going to tell me exactly where you hid those backup files. Then you're going to help me retrieve them and destroy them properly. And then, he looked at me with those cold, dead eyes. Well, then we'll make sure this problem never comes up again. I told you, there are no backup files. Then you have a problem, Michael. Because if you can't give us what we want, we'll have to assume you're still a threat. And we deal with threats the same way we dealt with your wife. That's when something inside me snapped. Maybe it was hearing them talk about my mother again, or maybe it was the way Vincent was looking at me like I was already dead. But suddenly, I wasn't scared anymore. I was angry. You kill my mom, I shouted, stepping out from behind Dad. You murdered her and made it look like an accident. Vincent raised his eyebrows. Well, looks like somebody's been telling stories. How much does she know, Michael? She doesn't know anything, Dad said quickly. I just told her this morning, right before you showed up. Interesting timing. Vincent stood up, still holding the gun. So little Emma here just learned that her whole life is a lie, and now she gets to watch her daddy die too. Unless... He paused, pretending to think. Unless Daddy can remember where he put those files. There are no files. Dad screamed, and I had never heard him sound so desperate. Vincent sighed like he was disappointed in a student who hadn't done their homework. You know what I think, Michael? I think you're telling the truth. I think you really did destroy all the evidence 5 years ago. Hope flickered in Dad's eyes. Then you'll leave us alone? Oh no, Vincent said, smiling that terrible smile again. Because even if there are no files, there's still the problem of you. You see, you know things. You remember things. And as long as you're alive, You're a risk to our organization." The bearded man pulled out a second gun. "Should we just get this over with, boss?" "In a minute," Vincent said. "First, I want to hear Michael beg for his daughter's life. I want to hear him promise to do whatever we ask if we just let little Emma live." Dad's face crumpled. "Please," he whispered. "Please don't hurt her. She's just a child. She doesn't know anything. She can't hurt you. Take me, do whatever you want of me, but please let her go." "That's better," Vincent said. "But you see, Michael, we can't let her go. She's seen our faces now. She knows our names. And someday, when she grows up, she might decide to finish what Daddy started." I realized with horrible clarity that they were going to kill both of us. No matter what Dad said, no matter what he promised, we were both going to die in our kitchen on what should have been a normal Tuesday morning. But then I remembered something. The emergency drills Dad had been making me practice. The hiding games. Running from the back door to the garden shed. The back door was only 10 feet away from where I was standing. "You know what the funny thing is?" Vincent was saying to Dad. "If you had just minded your own business 5 years ago, none of this would have happened. Your wife would still be alive, your daughter would grow up to be a normal teenager, and you'd be fixing cars in peace for the rest of your life." "I was trying to do the right thing," Dad said quietly. "The right thing." Vincent laughed. "The right thing got your wife killed, and is about to get your daughter killed too. Was it worth it, Michael? Was being a hero worth destroying your family?" That's when I made my move. While Vincent was focused on tormenting Dad, I took 3 quick steps backward and grabbed the handle of the back door. "Emma, no!" Dad shouted, but it was too late. I yanked the door open and ran faster than I had ever run in my life, sprinting across our backyard toward the garden shed just like Dad had taught me. Behind me, I could hear shouting and the sound of heavy footsteps pounding across our kitchen floor. "Get the girl!" Vincent was yelling. "Don't let her get away!" I reached the shed and dove behind it just as the first gunshot rang out across our quiet neighborhood, shattering the morning air and probably waking up every person on Elm Street. But the shot hadn't been aimed at me. As I huddled behind the shed, gasping for breath and shaking uncontrollably, I heard Vincent's voice again, cold and satisfied. "Now your daughter gets to watch you die, Michael. I hope she remembers this moment for the rest of her very short life." The gunshot echoed through the morning air like thunder, and for a moment, everything went completely silent. No birds singing, no cars driving by, no sounds from inside our house. Just terrible, crushing silence that made me want to scream. Then I heard Dad's voice, weak but alive. "You missed." "Did I?" Vincent's laugh sent chills down my spine. "Look at your shoulder, Michael." I peeked around the corner of the shed and saw Dad sitting on our back porch steps, holding his left shoulder. Blood was seeping between his fingers, staining his blue work shirt dark red. "That was just a warning shot," Vincent said, stepping out of our house with his gun still drawn. "The next one goes right through your heart. But first, we need to collect your little girl." The bearded man came out behind Vincent, scanning our backyard with his own weapon. "She's hiding behind the shed, boss. Want me to go get her?" "No," Vincent said. "Let her come to us." "Emma," he called out in a sickeningly sweet voice. "Come out, sweetheart. Daddy's hurt, and he needs you." I pressed my back against the shed wall, my heart beating so loud I was sure they could hear it. Dad was bleeding and hurt, and it was my fault for running. If I had just stayed in the kitchen, maybe Vincent wouldn't have shot him. "Emma Rose Sullivan." Vincent's voice turned sharp and angry. "You have 10 seconds to come out, or I put another bullet in your father. And this time, I won't miss anything important." "Don't do it, Emma," Dad shouted, his voice strained with pain. "Stay hidden. Run." 5 seconds, Vincent called out. Where could I run? I was 12 years old, trapped in my own backyard by men with guns. Even if I could climb the fence into Mrs. Patterson's yard, what then? They would just follow me, and maybe hurt her too. "Time's up," Vincent said. Chapter 4. The gunshot echoed through the morning air like thunder, and for a moment, everything went completely silent. No birds singing, no cars driving by, no sounds from inside our house. Just terrible, crushing silence that made me want to scream. Then I heard Dad's voice, weak but alive. You missed. Did I? Vincent's laugh sent chills down my spine. Look at your shoulder, Michael. I peeked around the corner of the shed and saw Dad sitting on our back porch steps, holding his left shoulder. Blood was seeping between his fingers, staining his blue work shirt dark red. That was just a warning shot, Vincent said, stepping out of our house with his gun still drawn. The next one goes right through your heart. But first, we need to collect your little girl. The bearded man came out behind Vincent, scanning our backyard with his own weapon. She's hiding behind the shed, boss. Want me to go get her? No, Vincent said. Let her come to us. Emma, he called out in a sickeningly sweet voice. Come out, sweetheart. Daddy's hurt, and he needs you. I pressed my back against the shed wall, my heart beating so loud I was sure they could hear it. Dad was bleeding and hurt, and it was my fault for running. If I had just stayed in the kitchen, maybe Vincent wouldn't have shot him. Emma Rose Sullivan. Vincent's voice turned sharp and angry. You have 10 seconds to come out, or I put another bullet in your father. And this time, I won't miss anything important. Don't do it, Emma. Dad shouted, his voice strained with pain. Stay hidden. Run. 5 seconds. Vincent called out. Where could I run? I was 12 years old, trapped in my own backyard by men with guns. Even if I could climb the fence into Mrs. Patterson's yard, what then? They would just follow me, and maybe hurt her too. Time's up, Vincent said. I heard Dad cry out in pain, and I couldn't stand it anymore. These men had already killed my mother. I wouldn't let them kill my father too, especially not because I was too scared to face them. I stood up from behind the shed and walked slowly toward the back porch, my hands raised like I had seen people do in movies. There's a good girl, Vincent said, lowering his gun slightly. See how easy that was. Dad was pale and sweating, still holding his wounded shoulder. I'm sorry, sweetheart, he whispered as I got closer. I'm so sorry I couldn't protect you. It's okay, Dad, I said, surprised by how steady my voice sounded. It's not your fault. Vincent gestured for me to sit down next to Dad on the porch steps. What a touching family reunion. Now, before we finish this, I want both of you to understand something. Your deaths aren't personal. This is just business. Nothing more, nothing less. You're monsters, I said, looking right at him. Monsters? Vincent seemed amused. No, sweetheart. Monsters do evil things for fun. We're just businessmen protecting our investments. Your father threatened our livelihood, so we eliminated the threat. Your mother got too close to the truth, so we eliminated her too. And now you both know too much, so... He raised his gun again, pointing it directly at Dad's chest. That's when we heard the sirens. At first, it was just a distant wailing sound that could have been anything. But it got louder and louder, and Vincent's confident expression started to change. Police, the bearded man said nervously. Multiple units getting closer. That's impossible, Vincent snapped. Nobody called the police. But I knew who had called them. Mrs. Patterson, our nosy neighbor who never missed anything that happened on Elm Street. She must have heard the gunshot and called 911. The sirens were getting louder now, definitely heading in our direction. Vincent looked furious, like his perfect plan was falling apart. Change of plans, he said quickly. We take them with us. Boss, that's not smart, the bearded man said. 2 hostages will slow us down. I'm not leaving witnesses, Vincent snarled. Help me get them to the car. The third man, who had been quiet this whole time, finally spoke up. Vincent, we need to go. Now. Forget the cop and his kid. We can find them later. No. Vincent's voice was getting higher, more desperate. 5 years I've been looking for this man. 5 years wondering if he had evidence hidden somewhere that could destroy everything we've built. I'm not walking away now. The sirens were so close now that I could see the flashing red and blue lights reflecting off the windows of the houses across the street. Vincent was running out of time, and he knew it. Get in the house, he ordered, waving his gun at us. Move. Dad struggled to stand up, still bleeding from a shoulder wound. I helped him as much as I could, and we stumbled toward our back door. If the police come in, you both die, Vincent warned. And then we kill as many cops as we can before we go down. You want that on your conscience, Michael? We were back in our kitchen now, the same kitchen where I had eaten breakfast 1,000 times, where Dad had told me the truth about who we really were just an hour ago. But now it felt like a prison. What's the plan, boss? The bearded man asked, peering out the front window. I count at least 4 police cars out there. Vincent was pacing back and forth, his gun still pointed in our direction. We wait. Let them set up their perimeter, try to establish communication. Then we negotiate. Negotiate for what? Safe passage out of here. A car, no pursuit for 1 hour, and we take the girl with us as insurance. No, Dad said firmly, despite his pain. You're not taking her anywhere. Vincent backhanded Dad across the face, sending him stumbling backward. You don't get to make demands anymore, Michael. You lost that right when you decided to play hero all those years ago. There was a loud knock on our front door, followed by a voice amplified by a megaphone. This is the Millbrook Police Department. We have the house surrounded. Come out with your hands visible. Vincent smiled that terrible smile again. Show time. He walked to the front window and called out loudly, We have 2 hostages in here. Officer Michael Sullivan and his daughter. If anyone tries to come in, they both die. There was a pause, then the megaphone voice again. We want to talk. Can you come to the front door, so we can establish communication? I'll talk from right here, Vincent shouted back. Here's what I want. A car, full tank of gas, and 1 hour head start. In exchange, I'll release the man. But the girl comes with us. That's not going to happen, the police officer responded. Vincent turned away from the window, his face twisted with rage. Then I guess we're all going to die in here today. He pointed his gun directly at my head, starting with her. But Dad had been slowly moving closer, while Vincent was distracted by the police. Even wounded and bleeding, he was still my father, still trying to protect me. Dad lunged forward, grabbing Vincent's gun hand and forcing it upward just as Vincent pulled the trigger. The bullet went into our ceiling instead of into me, and the 2 men crashed to the floor, wrestling for control of the weapon. Run, Emma. Dad gasped as Vincent's elbow caught him in his wounded shoulder. Get to the police. The bearded man was raising his own gun, trying to get a clear shot at Dad without hitting Vincent. I saw my chance and took it. I ran for the front door, unlocked it, and threw it open just as another gunshot rang out behind me. Officer down. Officer down. I screamed as I stumbled onto our front porch, my hands raised high. My dad's been shot. There are 3 men with guns inside. Police officers rushed toward me from behind their cars, and someone wrapped a blanket around my shoulders and pulled me to safety behind one of the patrol vehicles. Are you hurt? A female officer asked, checking me over for injuries. No, but my dad is. He's bleeding really bad, and they're going to kill him. Through the chaos of police radios and shouting officers, I heard one more gunshot from inside our house. Then everything went quiet again. The silence that followed that final gunshot was the longest 30 seconds of my life. I sat behind the police car, wrapped in a scratchy blanket that smelled like disinfectant, watching our front door and waiting for any sign that Dad was still alive. Please, I whispered to the female officer beside me. Please go help him. Officer Martinez, that's what her name tag said, put her hand gently on my shoulder. The tactical team is going in right now, honey. They're trained for situations like this. I watched as 6 police officers in heavy black gear moved toward our house, like a choreographed dance. They communicated with hand signals, covering each other as they approached our front door. The leader held up 3 fingers, then 2, then 1. They burst through the door with a crash that shook our windows. Police! Get on the ground! Drop your weapons! More shouting, the sound of heavy boots running through our house, doors slamming open. I held my breath, waiting for more gunshots, but they never came. After what felt like forever, one of the tactical officers appeared in our doorway and gave a thumbs up to the other police outside. All clear. 3 suspects in custody. We need paramedics inside now. Paramedics. That meant someone was hurt, but alive. It had to be Dad. Please let it be Dad. 2 ambulance crews rushed past me toward our house, carrying medical bags and a stretcher. I tried to follow them, but Officer Martinez gently held me back. "Let them do their job first," she said kindly. "As soon as they say it's safe, you can see your father." "Is he alive?" I asked, tears streaming down my face. The tactical team leader said, "He's conscious and talking." "That's a good sign." 5 minutes later, the paramedics wheeled Dad out on the stretcher. His left shoulder was bandaged, and there was a new bandage around his right arm, but his eyes were open and searching for me. "Emma," he called out when he saw me behind the police car. I broke free from Officer Martinez and ran to the stretcher.
"Dad."
"Are you okay?" "I thought they killed you." "I'm fine, sweetheart," he said, though his voice was weak. "Just a couple scratches." "Are you hurt?" "No, I'm okay." "What happened in there after I ran?" Dad managed a weak smile. "Vincent wasn't as tough as he thought he was. When you ran for help, he got distracted trying to shoot at you through the window. That gave me the chance to get his gun away from him." "And the other 2 men?" "They surrendered when they realized the police had the house surrounded. Turns out they weren't as loyal to Vincent as he thought they were." The paramedic loading Dad into the ambulance looked at me. "Are you coming with us to the hospital?" I looked at Officer Martinez, not sure what I was supposed to do. Everything had happened so fast that I hadn't had time to think about what came next. "Can I ride with my dad?" "Of course," she said. "But we'll need to talk to both of you at the hospital. There are going to be a lot of questions about what happened here today." The ride to the hospital was strange and surreal. Dad held my hand with his good arm while the paramedic checked his blood pressure and monitored his wounds. Through the ambulance windows, I could see our neighborhood sliding past, the same streets I had walked to school every day for 5 years, but everything looked different now. "Dad," I said quietly, "what's going to happen to us now?"
"I don't know, sweetheart.
But I promise you this, we're never going to have to run and hide again. Vincent and his men are going to prison for a very long time." "But what about our house? What about school? What about Emma? My friend Emma?"
Dad squeezed my hand.
"We'll figure it out. Maybe we can stay in Millbrook, maybe we can't. But whatever happens, we'll face it together. And this time, I won't keep any secrets from you." At the hospital, the doctors cleaned and stitched Dad's wounds while I sat in the waiting room with Officer Martinez and a detective named Detective Williams. They asked me hundreds of questions about what had happened, about the things Vincent had said, about how long Dad and I had been living under fake names. "You're a very brave girl," Detective Williams said after I had told them everything I could remember. "Running for help like that probably saved your father's life." "I was just scared," I said. "I didn't feel brave." "Being brave doesn't mean you're not scared," Officer Martinez said. "It means you do the right thing even when you're terrified." Dr. Peterson came out to tell us that Dad was going to be fine. The bullet wounds were clean and didn't hit any major blood vessels. He'll need to keep his arm in a sling for a few weeks, but he should make a full recovery. They let me see Dad in his hospital room. He was propped up in bed, wearing a blue hospital gown and looking more tired than I had ever seen him. "How are you feeling?" I asked, sitting in the chair next to his bed. "Like I got hit by a truck," he said with a weak laugh. "But alive, which is more than I expected this morning." "Dad, I need to ask you something, and I want you to tell me the truth. No more secrets, remember? Ask me anything. Are there really no backup files? No copies of the evidence you gathered on Vincent's organization?" Dad was quiet for a long moment, staring at the ceiling. "Why do you ask?" "Because Vincent seemed really convinced that you had hidden something. And when people are that sure about something, sometimes they're right." Dad turned to look at me, and I saw something in his eyes that I had never seen before.
"Pride."
"You're very smart, Emma Rose Sullivan," he said softly. "Too smart for your own good sometimes." "So there are files?" Dad glanced around the room to make sure we were alone, then motioned for me to come closer. When I leaned in, he whispered, "There's a safety deposit box at First National Bank downtown. Box number 247. The key is taped under the bottom drawer of my tool chest in the garage." My heart started beating faster. "What's in the box?" "Copies of everything. Financial records, photographs, recorded conversations, witness statements. Enough evidence to put Vincent and at least 20 other members of his organization in prison for the rest of their lives. But why didn't you tell the police? Why didn't you use it to stop them years ago? Because I was scared, Dad admitted. After they killed your mother, I thought if I just stayed quiet and disappeared, they would leave us alone. I was wrong. What are we going to do now? We're going to give that evidence to Detective Williams. We're going to make sure Vincent and his friends never hurt anyone else ever again. And then, Dad smiled, and for the first time in weeks, it looked like a real smile. Then we're going to decide who we want to be. Michael and Emma Rose Sullivan, or Robert and Sarah Henderson, or maybe someone completely new. Can we stay in Millbrook? If that's what you want. Vincent's organization is going to be too busy dealing with federal prosecutors to worry about us anymore. There was a soft knock on the door, and Detective Williams came in. Sorry to interrupt, but I have some news. Vincent Caruso has been charged with attempted murder, kidnapping, and about 15 other felonies. His 2 associates are cooperating with our investigation in exchange for reduced sentences. What about the murder of my wife? Dad asked. Detective Williams looked grim. That's where we need your help. We don't have enough evidence to charge him with Linda's death. It's been 5 years, and it was made to look like an accident. Unless you have something that could help us prove it was murder. Dad and I looked at each other. This was the moment of truth. Detective Williams, Dad said slowly, there are some things I need to tell you about my past. And there's something I need to give you that's going to make your case against Vincent a lot stronger. I'm listening. But first, I need to know, if I cooperate fully, if I give you everything I have, what kind of protection can you offer my daughter? Dad, I interrupted, I don't want to hide anymore. I don't want to be afraid anymore. Whatever evidence you have, we should use it to stop these people. Detective Williams nodded approvingly. The girl's right. And I can tell you this, if you have solid evidence against Caruso's organization, the FBI is going to be very interested in talking to you. Witness protection is definitely an option, but it might not be necessary. Sometimes the best protection is making sure the bad guys are locked up where they can't hurt anyone. Dad took a deep breath. Okay, there's a safety deposit box. As Dad began telling Detective Williams about the evidence he had hidden away, I felt something I hadn't felt in weeks. Hope. For the first time since this nightmare began, it seemed like we might actually win. But just as Dad was explaining about the recorded conversations, his hospital room door burst open and a nurse rushed in, looking panicked. Detective Williams, you need to come quickly. Vincent Caruso just escaped from the police transport van on the way to county jail. The room went dead silent. How is that possible? Detective Williams demanded. The van was ambushed by 3 armed men about 2 miles from here. They killed 1 officer and wounded another. Caruso and his men are armed and extremely dangerous, and we think they're heading back this way. Dad grabbed my hand so tightly it hurt. He's coming back for us. The blood drained from Detective Williams' face as he processed what the nurse had just told us. Vincent Caruso, the man who had murdered my mother, shot my father, and tried to kill both of us just hours ago, was free and probably on his way back to finish what he started. How long ago did this happen? Detective Williams demanded, already reaching for his radio. About 20 minutes, the nurse said, wringing her hands nervously. The hospital administrator wants to know if we should go into lockdown. Yes, immediate lockdown. No one in or out without police authorization. Detective Williams turned to Dad. Michael, we need to move you and Emma right now. This room isn't safe. Where can we go? Dad asked, struggling to sit up despite his injuries. If Vincent has help from his organization, nowhere in this town is safe. We're moving you to a secure location until we can get federal marshals involved, Detective Williams said. But first, I need that key to the safety deposit box. If Caruso is desperate enough to stage a prison break, he's not going to stop until he gets what he thinks you have. Dad looked at me, and I could see the fear in his eyes. Not fear for himself, but fear for me. Emma, I need you to listen very carefully. Detective Williams is going to take you somewhere safe while I go get the evidence from the bank. No, I said immediately. I'm not leaving you again. Sweetheart, this is the only way. Vincent wants those files, and he wants me dead. If we stay together, we're both in danger. But if we split up, then he might catch one of us. I interrupted. Dad, we're stronger together. We proved that this morning when we fought back. Detective Williams was pacing the small hospital room, speaking rapidly into his radio. I need units at First National Bank immediately. And get me the bank manager. We need to access a safety deposit box right now. Through the hospital room window, I could see police cars with flashing lights racing through the parking lot. The whole hospital was buzzing with activity as security guards rushed to lock down the building. Detective, Dad said, there's something else you need to know. The key isn't the only thing protecting that evidence. What do you mean? The safety deposit box has a special lock. It requires 2 keys to open, mine and another one that I gave to someone else for safekeeping. Detective Williams stopped pacing. Who has the second key? Dad hesitated, glancing at me. Marcus Webb. He's the friend who helped us get our new identities 5 years ago. Former FBI agent, now works private security. Where is he? Last I heard, he was living in Chicago. But detective, if Vincent has escaped, Marcus could be in danger too. Vincent's organization has long memories and lots of resources. They might go after him to get the second key. The detective was already dialing his phone. I'll have the Chicago PD send units to check on him. But I was thinking about something else. Something that had been bothering me since Vincent first appeared in our kitchen that morning. Dad, I said slowly, how did Vincent find us? We've been hiding for 5 years. What changed? Dad's face went pale. I don't know. I've been so careful. We never used our real names. Never contacted anyone from our old life. Except for Marcus, I pointed out. But Marcus would never. Dad stopped mid-sentence, his eyes widening with realization. What is it? Detective Williams asked. 3 weeks ago, when I got that first threatening note, I called Marcus to warn him. I told him Vincent's people had found us, and that he should be careful in case they came looking for him too. Detective Williams lowered his phone. You think Marcus might have been compromised? Phone calls can be traced, Dad said quietly. If Vincent's organization has been monitoring Marcus, they could have tracked the call back to me. Or, I said, the horrible thought forming in my mind, what if Marcus told them where we were? No, Dad said firmly. Marcus saved our lives 5 years ago. He gave up his career to help us disappear. He would never betray us. But Detective Williams looked skeptical. People change, Michael. And 5 years is a long time. Maybe Vincent's organization got to him. Money, threats, blackmail. There are lots of ways to turn someone. Before Dad could respond, there was a commotion in the hallway outside our room. Shouting voices, running footsteps, and then the unmistakable sound of gunshots. There in the building, Detective Williams said grimly, drawing his weapon. We need to move now. He helped Dad out of the hospital bed while I grabbed the bag of Dad's clothes that the nurses had put in the corner. Dad was weak and moving slowly because of his injuries, but adrenaline was helping him stay on his feet. There's a service elevator at the end of the hall, Detective Williams said. If we can get to the parking garage, I have backup waiting. We opened the hospital room door carefully and peered out. The hallway was chaos. Nurses and doctors rushing patients into rooms, security guards shouting orders, and police officers running toward the main elevators where the gunshots had come from. Stay low and stay quiet, Detective Williams whispered. We made it about halfway down the hall before we heard Vincent's voice echoing from the main lobby, amplified by some kind of megaphone or PA system. Michael Sullivan. I know you're in this building. You have something that belongs to me, and I want it back. His voice was different now, desperate and angry in a way that made him sound even more dangerous than before. You killed my men, Michael. You cost me millions of dollars and 5 years of planning. But I'm willing to make one final deal. We reached the service elevator and Detective Williams frantically pushed the call button. Bring me the evidence, and I'll let your daughter live. You have 10 minutes before I start killing hospital patients one by one until you come out. The elevator doors opened, and we rushed inside. Detective Williams hit the button for the parking garage level, and we started descending. "He's bluffing," Dad said, but I could hear the uncertainty in his voice. "He wouldn't kill innocent people." "This is the same man who murdered your wife," Detective Williams reminded him. "I don't think he has any limits." When the elevator doors opened in the parking garage, we were met by 4 police officers who immediately surrounded us for protection. "The building is secure on this level," one of them reported. "But we have reports of multiple shooters on the upper floors." "We need to get them out of here," Detective Williams said. "What's our best route?" "South exit is clear. We have unmarked cars waiting." As we moved through the parking garage, I kept thinking about what Vincent had said. He was willing to make one final deal. That meant he still thought Dad had the evidence, which meant he still needed us alive, at least until he got what he wanted. But what would happen after that? We had almost reached the unmarked police cars when the lights in the parking garage suddenly went out, plunging us into complete darkness. "It's a trap," Detective Williams shouted. Gunfire erupted from multiple directions, muzzle flashes lighting up the garage like deadly fireworks. The police officers who had been protecting us scattered for cover behind cars and concrete pillars. In the chaos and darkness, I felt someone grab my arm, but it wasn't Dad or Detective Williams. "Hello again, Emma Rose," Vincent's voice whispered in my ear. "Time for that final deal I mentioned." Before I could scream for help, something sharp pricked my neck, and the world started spinning around me. As consciousness faded away, I heard Dad calling my name somewhere in the darkness. But his voice sounded farther and farther away, until finally, everything went black. When I woke up, I was tied to a chair in what looked like an abandoned warehouse, and Vincent Caruso was sitting across from me, smiling that terrible smile I had hoped never to see again. "Welcome back, Emma. Now, let's discuss what your father is going to do to get you back alive." And there we have it. Emma Rose Sullivan's incredible story of survival, family secrets, and the courage it takes to fight back against impossible odds. What started as a mysterious note under her pillow has led to a heart-stopping confrontation that changed everything she thought she knew about her life. But this is just the beginning of Emma's journey. We've only scratched the surface of Vincent Caruso's criminal organization, the truth about what really happened to Emma's mother, and whether Marcus Webb can be trusted. Most importantly, we still don't know if Emma and her father will survive this final, desperate confrontation. Will Detective Williams and the police be able to rescue Emma from the warehouse? Can her father retrieve the evidence from the safety deposit box without walking into another trap? And what other secrets are hidden in those files that Vincent is so desperate to destroy? The biggest lesson Emma has learned so far is that sometimes the people who love you will lie to protect you, but that doesn't make the lies right. Her father kept the truth from her for 5 years because he thought it would keep her safe, but in the end, the truth was the only thing that could truly protect them both. Emma has also discovered something powerful about herself. She's braver than she ever imagined. When faced with armed criminals who had already killed her mother, she didn't just hide and hope for rescue. She fought back, she made smart decisions under pressure, and she refused to give up even when everything seemed hopeless. But her greatest challenge still lies ahead. Vincent Caruso has her exactly where he wants her, and this time, there's no police backup coming to save the day. What happens next? Will Emma escape? Will her father sacrifice himself to save her? And what explosive secrets are hidden in that safety deposit box that could bring down Vincent's entire criminal empire? The thrilling conclusion to Emma's story is coming soon, but only when you're ready to find out how this incredible tale of courage, family, and justice finally ends. Thank you for joining Emma on this unforgettable adventure. Remember, being brave doesn't mean you're not scared. It means you do the right thing even when your heart is pounding and your hands are shaking. Sometimes that's the only way to protect the people you love. Stay tuned for the epic conclusion. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Thank you, and God bless you.